Welcome to White People, Black Music, and Liberation. I'm Eric, and I'm here on the journey with you. This is a transmission at the intersection of race, music, and spirituality. It's about moving past the programming and into liberation. Getting back into our conversation here with Matt Sawaya, aka Matré. This little installment here really gets to the root of why this work is really important. Why should we even care about racial justice? What's the problem here? Why even have these conversations? And especially now where folks are answering that question in a lot of different ways, I think Matré's answer is especially poignant. So I'm just going to sit back, relax, and dial that up. And I'll talk to you at the end.
You're feeling like not supported, or you're feeling criticized, or you're feeling like somebody has a problem with you doing that because of the fact that you're white passing, whatever. And you articulated it really well in that you said that it's kind of just like an invitation to keep asking a question. And I was curious, like, what is that question and how has it changed for you over time?
You know, I was starting to say earlier in the conversation, this idea of having conversations in a way where, like, the things that we say or that I say are like at the growing edge of something new coming in as we talk in real time.
Yeah.
And I think for me, especially with this topic, there's like almost, your questions are coming and there's almost no like pre-thought of answer that I have, because I'm trying to feel where I am with it now, because it is a constant process of growing and learning.
Yeah.
And actually what's true right now, you know, where am I now that actually is the true place that might be a different answer than even if we talked yesterday, you know, and definitely is a different answer than if we talked a year ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to like listen as we talk, because and maybe this starts to lean in a little bit to answering your question, but I'm finding my way there, I think, in a roundabout way. Like, I can feel and have felt since I was a child, like I was saying, that the situation that we have, I'm taking this to a really basic place now, the way that I'm saying this, but for me, it's helpful to take it to this really like almost rudimentary basic place. Like, I could feel as a child, and I can still feel now, that it's not right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting because this is the first time in the conversation that I can feel my heart and I'm getting moved, you know, saying that, because that starts to take it to like that core place. You know, it didn't feel right as a kid to see what my young, like, black friends were having to deal with that I didn't have to deal with, and that how they were looked at differently than I was. And, you know, my young Latino friends, and I grew up in a neighborhood that was just separated by one street from a neighborhood that was primarily black and Latino, and then you crossed the street and it was sort of primarily white on the other side of the street. I actually have a song called Pico Boulevard that's about that dividing line going through Santa Monica, where I grew up. And I could just feel as a kid, this isn't right. And there was all kinds of things that my friends who grew up in that neighborhood had to deal with that I never had to deal with. Like in this song Pico Boulevard, I talk about how, you know, we would sometimes hear gunshots, but the gunshots were always across that street on the other side of this invisible fence.
Mm.
They were never on our block.
Mm.
They were always on the block of people who were black and brown,
Mm-hmm.
who were just across this divide,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I started realizing really and feeling really young that it just felt so wrong.
Mm.
And to be honest, it hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's interesting, like, again, I'm moved as I'm saying it, like, it still hurts now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe this is an interesting question, and I'm sorry, brother, if I kind of didn't go with the exact answer to your question, but this is sort of like where the moment is taking me. I think there's a part of me still trying to find, how is it okay for me to say, as a white or white passing person, that my investment in it absolutely is in support of other people not suffering from these fundamentally unjust conditions that we've created, and an unjust consciousness around viewing different people differently. Absolutely, it's about that, and it's also because it hurts in me.
Mm.
It's not, I can feel in my heart that it's not right. These conditions of injustice and this consciousness of injustice, and could as a kid, and continue to as a teenager, and continue to into my adult life. And so there's a part also of like, I need to do something because this isn't right, and I need to do something because this is hurting people I love and people around me. And I need to do something because this hurts me to live in a cultural space where this is the way that things are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting question, because there's part of me that really, I can feel myself, I'm like, oh man, is it okay to say this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, where it,
Mm-hmm.
because there's no part of me that's saying like, oh, this has been so difficult for me at all, in a way that's like equating what I've experienced with somebody who, you know, who has grown up as a black person in the United States, as a Latino person in the United States, or as any of these other groups, communities of color, who has not passed as white. You know, I'm not in any way equating my experience with that. What I am saying is that for me as well, in my own way, that's not that experience, but that is the experience of living with something and in a context that has something so fundamentally wrong in it. You know? And of seeing the violence that young people around me experienced, young people of color around me experienced growing up, that I didn't have to experience. You know, and all different kinds of things, whether that violence was actually physical violence or just the violence of like walking into a store and being looked at differently.
Yeah.
You know, being treated differently by teachers or in a professional setting. So, yeah, there's a question there for me, I guess. What's the relationship to my own wound with that? And what's the relationship to trying to support wellness for the people around me as well? Yeah. I'm actually just like in it and feeling it as we talk. So there's not a clarity of like a certain point, but that's kind of what's coming through.
Yeah.
It's not a healthy situation in terms of deep human well-being from the perspective of anybody on any side of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And again, I have like this like fear around how to express that, because I don't ever want it to seem like I'm not acknowledging that the experience is fundamentally different, you know, depending on where we fall in this whole racial picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully there's something coming through there that makes some sense.
No, it's like you said at the beginning of the call, and I mean the idea of this being a wound, it was a wound that like I feel like I was suffering with for a long time, and I didn't even really know it existed. You know? So
I made a point at the end here that this entire thing was a wound that I was suffering from without even knowing it. My experience growing up was different from Matré's. I didn't experience racism as directly viscerally. I was experiencing it more subconscious, and it wasn't later on in my life when I started doing the work to, let's say, unwind all of that. This question is especially relevant to me right now because I'm asking myself the question, how do I relate to folks now who deny that the wound actually even exists? And it's not like I have an answer to that. I'm just sort of sitting in the question of it. But I think the next installment of this, we're going to talk a little bit more about liberation. And that's sort of one possible answer to that question. So that's going to be coming up in the next one. Okay, talk to y'all really soon. I'm Eric, and this has been White People, Black Music, and Liberation. If this message speaks to you and you want to be part of the journey, head to whitepeopleblackmusic.com and let's build a world where liberation is for everyone.